you can before you start screen sharing.
Perfect. So I'm going to do that. I'm sharing my screen share now, and so you should be seeing my ePortfolio right in front of you. Is everybody able to see that? Okay, I assume since we have a muted, I see shaking heads, so that's always a good thing in life. Okay, so my computer's trying to get me to upgrade something already. Just it wants to get in on the act, I think. Okay, so thank you so much for taking the time to join me today to walk through my ePortfolio. And I wanted to let you know I do have my course also open if you want to look at what these things look like in the actual course. I'm happy to walk you through that as well. So as you see, I have a little blurb about me, and I noticed that everybody else talked about their experience with joining at one and starting with the program. So I gave you a little background, and just so you know, I had a very wise bird tell me I should get into this program back in 2013. I took my time and did all 5 courses, and now I'm in my practicum. So I'm very excited to be doing this, and I'm very excited about what this will enable me to do after I'm done with the practicum. I do teach sociology, humanities, and music appreciation. I've taught at Modesto Junior College, and Ohlone College is where I've taught the most in terms of sociology, that is the course that I have developed in my ePortfolio as my sociology course. So you might also want to know, I also teach yoga on the side and have sung opera professionally. So just kind of a couple of tidbits about me. And then here is my tour video for my ePortfolio, and it's in my backyard, which you're also seeing behind me right now is our water features in our backyard. And then here is the tour of the actual ePortfolio. So that first video was more of a welcome. This one's an actual tour through the entire ePortfolio, so you can always use this as a reference point. But going on to the standards, you'll notice that, and I noticed a couple of other people did this too, is I'm kind of a nutshell kind of girl. I like to always be able to reduce things down to the most common denominator, especially when I'm teaching to students, because as you know, students, you throw 5, 10 facts at them, they probably will remember maybe one of them. So what I try to do with students is I try to always get them to, with each lesson, if you remember nothing else, here's the one thing you should know about this lesson. So I think that really helps. And so I did the same thing with the standards. I kind of created a phrase, but I felt encapsulated each of the standards. So you'll see that in the list on the left-hand side here. Okay? And then going into the standards, I tend to like to be extremely structured in organization, so you'll notice the same thing in my course, almost to the point of boring people. I think it's really important to create a lot of consistency so that the things you're actually teaching people really jump out at them and it really comes to life for them. The other thing I like to do as a kind of a source of organization is images. So I went on Flickr and I found some really interesting images. And so for each of my standards, I have an image. For each of my lessons in my course, I have a central image that really brings together the central point of each lesson or the central point of each of these standards. So the first standard, of course, is the key to success for students. You'll also notice how I organized my standards, where I stated the original standard here. I took the subpoints of each standard and brought them over to the side here. So each of the subpoints will have their own artifact and reflection. Once in a while, I'll use 2 artifacts to illustrate that subpoint of that standard. So on the outer page for the general standard, you'll see my general reflection. And you'll notice that I do a brief reflection about the image I've chosen specifically, once again, to say if there's anything else you need to know about this standard, it's that it's all about student success, ensuring student success. And so I figure the picture really says it for us. And once again, you'll see I put here my organization of how I like to organize my course. I like to organize by unit and lessons. Starting out with a predictable module overview, module and lesson, module presentation, then the activities and assessments that go with that lesson. And then going into each, of course, of these standards you have, supporting student success. So I'm just going to briefly walk through these. These are the course policies, of course. And 1.2 is where we talk about the welcome letter, syllabus communication, other important course policies. And of course, my welcome letter is in an attachment at the bottom if you want to look at it later on. And then the one I wanted to bring your attention to is the one about making sure students are ready for readiness online. So in my actual course, I break it out to where I have that, you know, welcome to the course. And then one of the very first things I say to them is, let's make sure you're actually in the right course, that you really want to be taking the Intro to Sociology course. I give them the course description, the learning outcomes. And so once they verified, okay, yeah, I'm in the right course, then the very next thing I do is the next page is talking about, are you in the right learning environment for you? And that's where we really get into the online readiness, as well as the syllabus quiz is something I like to point out, because although I pull certain aspects of the syllabus out to the student in my pages, there are a couple of the syllabus quiz questions they have to open up the syllabus to find the answers. So that ensures that they've actually opened up the syllabus and they know what it's all about. I encourage them to print it out, as well as, you know, just keep it for quick reference. The document I wanted to draw your attention to is this Empower Yourself document. So this is something unique I do. Over the summer, I read 6 books on learning theory, and I'm just voraciously keep reading all these learning theory books. I found out that I wish I'd been a psych major after all and studied cognitive science. So what I did was I thought, okay, what if I could post a one-page document that would help students know what tips would help them learn most effectively? And I figured any student can digest one page. So I put them in bullet points in 3 different groupings of strategies to help them learn and remember, strategies for knowing what works for them, as well as strategies for success in school and in life. And I challenge my students by saying, hey, just take a quick look at this document and ask yourself, are these things I do to help myself to learn? And one of the best recommendations from all these books was the idea of just telling people, here's how people learn best. So that would help them be a little bit more set up for success. Okay. Then the next thing we're going to go to is standard 2. Okay. So once again, this is my philosophy in an online environment, is to mimic as closely as possible the face-to-face learning environment. A lot of people feel like the online learning environment is very limited, or there's only certain things they could do, and I'm convinced that you can do just as much in an online learning environment as you can in a face-to-face. So I really want to help create that feeling that we're all in the classroom together. So once again, you're seeing the reflection here, and what I wanted to draw your attention to is, well, we've got our content delivery, of course, and that can be done as videos, PowerPoints, all sorts of different things. Learning tools, you do have where we have learning tools that are given to us both by the Canvas system as well as by publisher software, and so I like to utilize both. I find them really handy. Where I find the publisher software handiest are the things that are most time-consuming for us as teachers to develop, which is the accessible content delivery, low-stakes formative assessments with embedded feedback, and some of the data and analytics for those low-stakes assessments. So I have a little bit of an explanation here about it, as well as if you want to check it out, the materials I'll be using, you can click on that link. Here's a demo login name and password you can use to see the student perspective of what that program looks like. And a combination of different learning styles. Once again, I did put the publisher software here because it has the audio version of the book, embedded videos with closed captioning, as well as some really neat activities, and the embedded assessments, which is kind of fun, so students can learn as they go. Standard 3. This is my favorite of all the standards, I have to tell you. I loved my social learning class with that one with Debbie Lemon. She was amazing. In fact, it was my very first class I took with that one. And so you'll notice a lot of the activities I do in my class are all about that social learning environment. So one of the things I'd like to walk you through is that I like to do group work. I did group work successfully for 10 years face-to-face, and I totally believe it can be done online. I do offer an alternative assignment for somebody who's absolutely opposed to group work, but in 10 years, I only had 2 students take that option. So what's nice about it is a lot of teachers are afraid to do this group work. And it's because one person ends up doing all the work. So what I did was I divide people into specific roles. And these roles actually work in tandem with each other. So for a sociological presentation, I would have somebody who's going to do the historical background research, someone who's going to do the theoretical background research, and those two would compare notes with each other. And they can use the great tool in Canvas that gives them that assignable discussion board that's just for that group so they can work privately together, exchange materials, ideas, dialogue about it. Then I have the statistics person as well as the example research who brings in case studies and so on, so they would compare notes with each other. Then all 4 of those people would give their notes to the organizer who puts it in a coherent organization. And then the organizer would work with the visual presenter to come up with a final product. So they can either deliver it as a PowerPoint, a video, or if they want to do a live CCC Confer session where we would videotape it, where we record it like we are now, they can do that. So that's kind of neat. And of course, I have a group presentation worksheet that they can use as well. So they would take that learning. Now, when I did this in a face-to-face environment, I did 2 presentations. They would do one kind of somewhere throughout the semester on a sociological theme. And then at the end, they would do this project. In an online learning environment, since this would be my first time doing this, I would want to just focus on that final project and have them work on it throughout the entire semester. Maybe if I get daring later on, I might do the second one. So the community service learning project, yes, this is service learning, is called Pay It Forward. And I just love this project because what they do is I have it posted in my course where they can go to the Ohlone College Community Service Learning link so they can find a community service learning organization that they can go and help. So what they have to do is find out the background of that organization, what is something that is needed in that organization that doesn't currently exist, and their job is to come up with that thing that the organization needs to somehow. A lot of times it is something as simple as developing a little website or a Facebook page or something really simple, but to leave something behind as kind of their legacy to where they've actually contributed something unique. And this is getting on the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy in terms of create. So the students love it. They really love this activity. And because they know they're in those individual roles, I tell them my goal is to grade you all the same. But if I notice one of those elements is sadly lacking, that person will be graded differently. So that kind of creates that peer pressure to where they're like, well, I better do my job because they're going to figure out that I'm not doing my job if that element is missing. So that is something I wanted to call your attention to. And of course, we'll have a general discussion forum for questions, answers, concerns, just everyday interaction. And the welcoming activity, this one, once again, I got from my social learning class with Debbie Lemon. She's such a great teacher. You guys need to make sure you keep her happy. Is the icebreaker activity she had. And it was a simple Google Doc of a PowerPoint presentation. So she gave each person a slide to post an image that somehow conveyed who they are. And then they had to do a little explanation of, well, how does this image express who I am? And then we had to make comments on at least 2 other students' images and try and find common ground, something we connect with that person. So it's a great way to get to know each other. Okay, so obviously you can see community building is my favorite thing to do. I love this picture of the fish in the computer, the school of fish. So once again, this goes with my philosophy of really believing that the online learning environment needs to mimic that face-to-face environment as much as possible in terms of really having a sense of connection. So obviously we'll have our communication tools that we'll talk about in terms of CCC Confer and email, as well as the policies of when I'd answer emails and when we'll have our CCC Confer sessions. And of course, here's a little bit more about using the online office hours. Some helpful policies and rubrics. So one of the things I like using, and I just started dabbling a little bit more in using the Canvas rubrics. They are amazing. But I also like to give people worksheets. So in addition to the rubric, sometimes it's just handy to have something that they can print out and they can kind of keep track of them working on a project. So I have them do a research paper. So this one looks like this, to where they do it on sociology of the arts and humanities, and they have to find an artistic object or experience that either reflects society or shows how that thing has shaped society. And they have to look at it from a theoretical perspective in sociology. And then I have these little points that they can fill out as they go that also remind them of the rubric points associated with each thing. So students really liked having that, that tool there, okay? And then providing feedback. I think the tutor services that are inside of Canvas are really super helpful. I've used online tutoring services before, and I find it takes away all the excuses for students not to use them. And I like to use a lot of writing activities because it really shows me how well the student truly understands the concepts and is able to critically think about it. My only problem is I'm not an English teacher. It was difficult getting through all the bad writing. So now I have a backup plan, you know, real English people that understand good writing and how to, you know, teach students how to write well. So then I get to focus more on my content. But I also have a nice backup for comments I've made to students. So once they hear it from more than one source, they actually start to believe you that they need to fix these things in their writing. So I found that especially helpful. The ethics coverage I have in the standard is pretty straightforward. The compliance with legal guidelines. What I like about the FERPA section is that I was able to grab a screenshot from the Canvas demo site because I don't currently have a course in Canvas that's active. So I was able to, you know, bring in a shot of how you can do the feedback and how it's nice and private between the teacher and the student. And so they can feel comfortable in their learning environment and they can get as much support as needed. As well as I just put on the netiquette standards of content and conduct, which are so very important in an online environment since students are working in social media and they don't realize how much their digital footprint can impact not just their academic life, but their future work life. So that is, I truly believe that every facet of our interaction with students is helping prepare them for a successful life, not just for our discipline, but in everything that they do. And I think that's a huge responsibility that we do have. And then we have accessibility here. What I liked about my accessibility course with that one was realizing that accessibility goes way beyond just vision and hearing. It actually goes down to how people think differently. So when I looked through this, I really liked this image, especially the little one about the brain, because when I took my first, my @ONE accessibility course, I didn't realize why I have this habit of anytime somebody sends me something electronic, I convert it to Arial because I have a vision problem from childhood. And I didn't realize that that was actually increasing my cognitive load in my brain, which made it harder for me to focus on the thing I was actually trying to learn from the interaction. So I automatically convert everything to Arial and found out sans serif font is easier to understand, easier to see, quicker to digest mentally for me. And I think it's important to point out to students the campus services that are available because it's very possible they've gone through an entire lifetime maybe just thinking they were a bad student because they were slower than other students. But, you know, it's possible that maybe they still need to get something caught, such as dyslexia, so that they can learn tools for how to cope with something like that. And of course, it's important to do the fully accessible content. And the closed captioning was very interesting because I never realized how often I say the word so. So during the closed captioning, there was often I thought, do I need this many so's? Do I need to just put in a ... And what was interesting about our accessibility video we watched for this course was it said we don't have to include every word. We just need to include the words that convey the message, which was very helpful. So now when I do my closed captioning, I'll probably be taking out a lot of so's. So I also love how Canvas is very highly accessible and very easy to use. I noticed that I can just copy paste from a Word doc directly into Canvas and it immediately goes into the right font style. Love that. And it just feels very seamless, which is great. On standard 7, I like this guy because we're all trying to remember that what we're trying to do is leave the student with something they can take into the rest of their lives and use for their lifetime, both for work, for social things. So these students want to graduate, they want to succeed, and they're really going out of their comfort zone to do it in an online environment. I think we need to keep our focus that that's what we're here to help them to do. So once again, you can see the reflection about that image and so on. The learning outcomes and assessments. The one tool I found extremely helpful that I still use on a very regular basis is that matrix we got in our first @ONE course that helps us align the learning outcome and objective with the content we're using, the activities tied to it, and the assessment that measures their learning for that. I also loved how we learned how to write really good learning outcomes in terms of active language, not say the word understand, but demonstrate and so on. So I have our learning objectives from Ohlone College here for my course, as well as some of the test questions I'll use and how they get tied to those learning objectives. And then, of course, this is my @ONE comprehensive exam that is a summative assessment there. I also liked how we were encouraged to think about varied assessment types. This one in particular is an illustration of how I like to create a common thematic link throughout my course. So in the very first week, I have them watch kind of a dated video called The Global Brain by Peter Russell. It's a great way at helping people think outside the box when they're looking at the world and society. And I even have an optional extra credit assignment that's due at the end of the semester in VoiceThread based on that video. So around the 8th week of the course, I'll put in instructions for how to use VoiceThread, just in case, I figure by the 8th week, they're going to know, hey, I think I need some extra credit. So that's going to get them up and running with that right away. What I like about this discussion board is it is very closely married to their group final presentation on community service learning. So what I have them do are 4 discussion board entries throughout the semester. If you feel for any reason I need to have more discussion activities, let me know. But I think I have quite a bit of activities for my students to do in general. But they love this activity because I very much so space it out so they're basically doing 1 a month. So the first one is where they have to explore their own definition of what is altruism. And so what I do is I play the Shel Silverstein, and it is closed caption video on The Giving Tree, the storybook, the children's storybook. Many people haven't even read that. So they love that. And then I have them discuss, what are your definitions of altruism? Do you think it even exists? And then of course they have to comment on 2 other people's definitions of what is altruism. Their second one will be barriers to altruistic behavior. So this is coinciding with their initial research and proposal for the community service learning project. So I want to time these out so that they really coincide together. They're thinking about these issues at the same time they're trying to apply it to their community service learning. The third post talks about solutions for overcoming barriers to people acting altruistically. And then the 4th post is putting it into action. And by the time they're talking about the putting it into action, they've already done their community service learning project. So I have a Giving Tree worksheet that they can use. Don't think that's the next thing I'm going to show you. Then the formative feedback with rubrics. I have them do a little mini essay on culture to prepare them for their community service learning. So I like, as you can tell, I love doing a lot of scaffolding in my course, and I love doing assignments that are really related to each other. So students see that a lot of the reasons I like the idea of community service learning in general is, especially when I taught music appreciation and humanities, students didn't see the relevance of why do I have to take this course. So it's in those courses that I started projects like that, because I wanted them to see, what's this got to do with the real world? How can what I'm learning in this course help me in my life and help the people and the world around me? So I wanted them to be able to see that. And then you're seeing here, So self-assessment. So yeah, the eText has embedded assessments that are low stakes that will definitely tell me, are they rating? Are they understanding what they're reading? Are they getting help with what they don't understand? But the ones I think are really super helpful are my reflection journal activities, and my students absolutely love these. So I'll have them do 2 journal activities. You notice they're only worth 5 points. They're not super high stakes. So I just want to get their feet wet in that first one of looking at an actual primary source in sociology and talking about it from a theoretical perspective. How does it apply to my life and the world around me? But the one they love is this one. This is the legacy activity. So what I have them do is document, what are your current personality traits? What's your current life course? Now imagine your life continues on this trajectory for the rest of your life. Now imagine you're at the end of your life looking back. What do you feel good about? What are your regrets? What would you change if you could? So what I like about this is it's showing the students the relevance of what they're learning in the course, not only in terms of what it's going to do for them right now in their lives, but how it could possibly influence the entire rest of their lives. And I think that's really important. They see how important sociology is, especially when often people just think of it as common sense. 2, standard 8. And I love the ruler, measure your success. That was just such a fun image to find. It was hard to find awesome images in Flickr because when you Google things, you get exactly what you want. Flickr gives you a lot of random stuff that you're wondering, what is this? So anyway, so I like the idea of the data tracking tool. So there is a lot of data tracking tool help inside of Canvas. So once again, I took a screenshot from the demo site to show how the analytics work, as well as from my eText has some analytics that help you prepare for how to facilitate the course, as well as giving you some very specific item analysis on quiz questions, which is kind of fun. It works kind of like clickers do. And then the thing I really like, and I think students really appreciate, is proactive intervention, maybe midway through the semester, do it once, maybe twice tops, where you can take that data from Canvas and the data you have from other sources and send out emails saying, you know, hey, people 80% or higher, great job, keep it up, let me know if you need some help. People who are in the danger zone, maybe you ought to check in with me because I want you to know I care about your learning and I'm here to help. And then people 59% or lower, it's probably a mandatory check-in. We really need to discuss what's going on in the course to make sure you stay on track. Because to me, the most heartbreaking moment is when a student comes to you midway through the semester saying, I'm dropping your course. And sometimes we have no clue, you know, why that's happening, or they'll ask you, why am I not doing well in your course? And then, of course, you have to become a detective. So I think it's really important to be proactive about that. Okay. And then professional development, a couple of things I might want to point out too is I love doing the online teaching conference. When I first started going, I heard that every other year it was supposed to be in NorCal. So far, it hasn't been. So it's kind of kind of costly to get there, but I love going to the OTC. You learn so much from your peers, and I look forward to going to the next one. And of course, I belong to the American Sociological Association. I belong to Music Teachers Association for Music and Humanities. As far as I know, right now, we don't have a professional organization, but I'll have to look into that. It's been a few years since I've taught a humanities course, so I need to become active in that again. Lastly, engagement one. So you'll notice the images I try to use have either no words or very few words, because I think that's really much more digestible for the brain and for the average student. This one did have words, but they're not that important. What I liked about this is showing how no matter what, the connection between teachers and students and the course and the objective. And I love the idea of the fact that it puts the student in the center. So that reminds me to keep it a student-centered learning environment. And of course, to get there, you need to have a course tour. So this is my recorded course tour, which I kind of opened up there just so you know it's in YouTube and closed caption along with that cute cat. You'll notice that I also made a little shout out to my Canvas tools, which I really love. I love how they help you organize everything so nicely. And Canvas content delivery. What I love about Canvas is how seamless it is, how you can go from a page to a discussion to an exam to a presentation, and it just for the student feels so seamless, like you're in one place all the time. And then lastly, I wanted to say thank you for taking time to meet with me today to go through my ePortfolio. I'm very excited about any suggestions you might have as to how I can improve. Let me know if you want to look through the course. I do have it open and live right now if you want to look at anything. And I'm ready for any questions or suggestions you may have.
So I had said that Mike gets to go first, but since we have just a few minutes of extra time, what I would really like to do is have you take us into your course. And I personally would love for you to show us how students move from the Canvas course to the Pearson material and back to the course again, and show us what that looks like kind of in situ.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned that. And Lena, you're aware that I also do work for Pearson, but I don't try to make it kind of a salesy thing. I just found it a really, when I taught Music Christian Humanities to MJC for 6 years, publishers didn't make stuff for us in those courses back then. So I was always inventing my own wheel and, always really struggling with have they read the book and so on. So when I started teaching social over at Ohlone, I used my Social Lab. It made a huge difference. It freed me up to be more the teacher I really wanted to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the login name password I posted for you all. I think that's in the Learning Tools area. Okay. So we do have single sign-on. I just don't have it hooked up yet in my Canvas course. So just so you know, in a real connected course, which we do have we actually already have it in the fall in a pilot phase, the student would click on the Revel link and it pulls them in automatically. And we do have grade sync back into Canvas. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. So here's my course. So you're noticing we've got the week 1 and all that good juicy stuff, all my icebreaker activities. The student experience, if I go into week 2, so I like to highlight the active things the student is going to be doing and how many points. Well, no, I don't put the points there. I do put the date and due time. So that's nice. It kind of reminds the students, here are the active things you'll be expected to do this week. As you see, like I told you, I love having an image that kind of encapsulates everything. Here's the actual lesson. I just wanted to show you the progression of how the student would move through the lesson. They first have the actual lesson. I like giving them that notes format. I think that's really helpful for students. Here's the PowerPoint that goes with it. And then the student's next step would be they need to go into Revel. So in the truly linked Revel experience, they'll just be pulled right in. Right now, this is kind of more of a demo phase. So I'm going to go ahead and put that login name. And I'm going to grab the password as student 1. Okay. So ideally, in a linked environment, the screen they would be brought to from this screen would be, oh my goodness, the little toolbars in my way. Okay. There we go. It would bring it to this screen. And so what's nice about this screen is it has all their assignments on the calendar that they need to do, as you're seeing here. So the student would just click on the calendar item. It would bring them to what they need to do next. So they could either move through it. I'm going to have to move these guys over. And obviously, I don't have none of my assignments are really here yet. Let's go ahead and these are actually exactly according to my syllabus. So I'm moving backwards on the calendar a little bit here. Okay, so these are already open. So as a student, I would see here are my text sections, or what we do is, it depends on the author of the book. Some actually label them as topic headers like this one. Some label them as questions, some label them as actual learning objectives. Like by the end of this lesson, you will know A, B, and C. So as a student, I would click into my first part of my lesson. Okay, I would have the audio version of the book. I would scroll down. I can highlight and 3 different colors. What I like as a teacher is I can leave notes and highlights for my students, so that's kind of cool. So then I go through, and sometimes I'll have embedded videos, sometimes I'll have the definitions right there. I can just highlight over those. And then after I get through that section, and of course this particular author goes through a lot of pages before they get to the little mini quiz. So I'm going to just kind of go through. And you saw there was an embedded primary source document, which is kind of nice for students. And sorry, I just skipped past there. Here's a video that is closed caption and embedded, as well as some other interactive activities. And then now I have a little quiz where I can get that formative feedback. Except for I got that one right, didn't mean to. But what I like about this system is if the student gets it wrong, they'll get feedback that points them back to the learning objective. And it helps them try to figure out what the right answer is. But I also like that by default, they lose a point every time they get something incorrect, so it incentivizes them to study between each attempt. But it can be set up so they have unlimited attempts and they can take it as much as they want. And it doesn't minus a point. So it's however you choose to set that up. That's pretty much it. I mean, and of course, they can always look at their data within Revel as well as inside of Canvas. So, any other questions? And of course, they would progress out of that. And they've got their first discussion. There's my little giving tree video. I love that. So what I did was I just embedded those Revel links directly into Canvas. So it feels seamless to the students still. And of course, with true linking, they won't have to sign in the second time. They just get pulled right in. Okay. Any other questions?
Did you want to follow up, Lene, with anything you saw?
I'm happy to go into more depth or whatever. Just use the publisher software. Whether or not I was working for Pearson, I use it because I found I had a much more engaged class. And to be quite honest with you, it kind of takes care of the conundrum of have they read, did they understand what they're reading, and are they getting help with what they didn't understand. So I can focus on the more high-level activities that are more project-based learning, more the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy. So I use it as kind of a scaffolding tool. So it makes sure that they have the tools ready, prepared, they know how to use them to do the higher level activities.
Great, thanks. Mike, it's to you.
Well, thanks, Anna Kara. I think you can tell from Lene's question that we are really interested in how publisher content integrates with online classes and Canvas in particular. And I'm looking forward to when, like, this is the Revel product, like the My Math Lab, the My Blank Lab tools, they have a deep integration, and that's really nice. And then it really is scaffolded right there in Canvas, and you can feel like you're still in Canvas and not out. So I hope they get to that point with the Revel product. So keep pushing that if you would.
Working on that, and we actually got feedback from the accreditation teams that said, hey, the only thing we want you to produce are things that are hard for instructors to produce themselves, which is that accessible content, formative assessments, and those, analytics of the low stakes assessments. That was their kind of main thrust of what they wanted us to focus on. And so now our next step is we've got the linking to Canvas. Now we've got to do the deep linking.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, hey, I think you did a great job, and I really was impressed by how kind of efficiently and clearly you went through your whole portfolio. I really appreciate that. That makes it a lot easier for us to understand holistically what it is that you're trying to do and what you focus on. And so thank you for that. I also want to thank you. I'll tell Lene and others here that you turned me on to the book Make It Stick, and I read that this summer and really, really liked it. And I wondered if you could go quickly back to that handout that you have for effective learning, where you've distilled kind of in one page your best hits for students. I think it was in 1.3 or something like that.
Yeah. And I have to. I love to not only make it stick, but one of the benefits of the other job that I have, and I really do want to teach online again. I've had a couple of people say, "Hey, we'd love to have you teach online for us," but I really wanted to finish this certification first to make sure I was truly ready. But I get to talk to psychology professors all the time in my job, and so this tip originally came from a psychology professor from Santa Clara University when she recommended Make It Stick. And then the next book I read was How We Learn and so on. But what we did was the number one recommended best practice for students in really making sure that learning goes into long-term memory is memory retrieval practice. So that's why I called it out here in this area, because of all the tips that were recommended, the more the student gets to practice what they know. And when I recommend how people use our software in conjunction with everything else they're doing in the class, it's to give that student repeated exposure to that content so they can practice it. And you actually want to also space the practice so the brain actually starts to forget, so that you're working the brain to remember something. And I love the idea of scaffolding learning, so that the publisher software is just only serving as kind of an introductory to here are the tools, here's how they work, here's how you use them. But it's really the other assessments and assignments in the course and other elements of content where the rubber really meets the road. So these, that's just preparing them for these areas. But metacognition is so important, that reflection, the elaboration. And then the other interesting thing that is the new trend in learning theory is a lot of people think that we all have a learning style, how we learn best. And as it turns out, human beings need to be stimulated on all levels to learn most effectively. And what we think is our best learning style is actually our preferred learning style, which may or may not actually be the best learning style for us. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that was discussed in all the books that I read was the illusions of knowing. So reading the text or viewing content, the initial time is beneficial, but subsequent views or exposure to that content may actually be a disadvantage to the student, because it gives them the illusion that they know it just because they've seen it multiple times. So that's once again why that memory retrieval practice becomes so crucial to helping them know what they know versus what they don't know and what they need help with, so they know how to connect with their instructor more effectively to, help them learn better.
I think this is great. I would maybe suggest that you add a bibliography of those books. Sure. I know that it might make the page longer than one page, but I think it would be worth it to have the books that you feel like are the best that help you put this thing together, awesome. List them in there. So I have one other kind of question for you. I really think it's great that you are a champion of group work, and I am so happy with Canvas and its ability to manage group projects and make them really more efficient than I ever have seen them in any other learning management system. I think Canvas is by far the best at interactive group activities. You mentioned in, I forget which, you didn't think you only have 4 discussions, but you make up for that interaction by having lots of group work, where I think most online instructors, the discussion board is the key interactive place where students are kind of going at each other and helping each other and getting to know each other and supporting each other and follow-up questions and all the above. But you have a lot of this group work. How many, if you have about 4 discussions, how are they doing some kind of interactive group sort of thing every single week in your class? Are they
I would say every single week. They're obviously doing a lot of, I loved, there was a video that we had in our course where it showed children, the TED Talk of the guy he's Indian, and he was showing how they did these experiments with putting the computer in the wall and all that. Oh, you saw, he was really talking about how the teacher's kind of like a coach. like the grandmother, and the students are teaching each other. So I think that a lot of the teaching would happen in preparation for this final community service learning project as they're interacting through their individual group discussion boards. But here's a rundown of my grading, how it would look. So obviously the assignments that are very active, you've got those 4 discussion board activities, 2 comprehensive exams, a research paper. They have to get together in time to do that community service proposal. They're doing the reflection journals. But yeah, any suggestions or amendments to this would be greatly appreciated.
Well, I don't think the grading scale is a problem at all. I just if you just said I only have 4 discussions in 16 weeks, that might be a concern. But if you make up for that, enhance that, make that better with having lots of interaction in terms of group projects always going on,
right,
then that balances out. As long as students are kind of somehow they're talking and communicating in some way, I think every week or week and a half or so, you're probably in really good shape. I just want to make sure that's kind of in your mind.
And I do like that, because one of the things we could do is, as you see, I've already broken down some of the milestones of the ultimate final project. And remember, in an on-campus class, I do 1 regular group presentation, then the final group presentation. So what we could do is create milestones for the final community service learning project where, okay, by this time you should have discussed things on your discussion board enough to give me your community service proposal. Then maybe 2 weeks later, a draft of what you're doing so far, or what research have you found so far, and so on. So you could make these interval milestones that forces them to discuss with each other, at least on their individual discussion boards, on a regular basis.
And peer review could also work for those things as well. Yeah,
that would be great. Yeah, I'd love that. As you see, I like a lot of varied assignment types. I think it's so boring for students when they just do one type of assignment. Plus, you have people that excel at different types of assignments. Like some people are great test takers and other people are great writers. So I try to kind of have a little bit of something for everybody in there. Plus, it breaks up the monotony of a possible online environment.
Thank you. That's what I had. Thank you.
Thank you. That's awesome. I love that suggestion. Lene, do you have any suggestions for me?
I'm going to actually hand the baton to Donna. So, Donna, it's your turn.
Thanks. Thanks for letting me see your portfolio and be part of your presentation. I was looking at your portfolio yesterday, and I thank you for giving us a tour just now. The links to your YouTube tours are set to private, so nobody besides you can see them. So this is the first that I'm seeing of your course, and it really does help answer some of the questions that I had without having seen it. I have a couple of questions. So you had mentioned just today that you have a project where they're using a voice thread. Do you have an example of that we can see the voice thread?
So I have to admit, I'm not the best voice thread kind of girl, but I like to always give myself a challenge.
Yeah.
So, and I was thrilled to see it's embedded in Canvas now. So what you'll notice is I think it was at week 8. I think it's at week 8 where I put that in. Here we go. Extra credit opportunities for VoiceThread. So what I did here was I figured by week 8 they'll know if they're needing an extra credit opportunity. And so what this is a little tutorial page on how to get started with VoiceThread. And then, I'm sorry, I'm trying to move the little boxes over so they're out of the way. And then the actual activity. So I kind of have their community, I do their comprehensive exam, let's see, during week 14. So their first community service project presentations are there, and the following week, and their final journal reflection is right there. So here's the VoiceThread activity. I just do it during finals week. And so that gives them no excuse if they say, hey, I desperately need extra credit here. I did put together the presentation here, and it is based on that initial video, but I need to learn more about how to use VoiceThread, to be quite honest with you. I'm still feeling a little shaky about it. So any advice on how to set it, this activity up nicely would be great, but it is based on that initial video, and I'm not really sure what I've done here. So
great, that's
yeah,
fine.
I may not have set this up correctly.
I didn't know if you had like an example of how you had been using that. On your
this would be brand new for me, to be quite honest with you, but I want to do it because it's challenging, and I think it'd be fun.
So one of the things that, and just because I haven't seen your course enough, maybe, can you explain, it sounded like you had, in Canvas, you have a page that's kind of notes. You included some of the PowerPoint presentations in your portfolio. And so how does, I guess maybe I'm re-asking the same question that Lene asked, but I'm not seeing. How does so let's say they get to this PowerPoint presentation, or they read your notes, and then they go to a PowerPoint presentation, and then they go into the Revel?
Yeah, so basically, here's the Giving Tree discussion one. So they would go from the actual lesson.
And when you say actual lesson, you mean this is like content that you've put in your Canvas course?
Yeah, a little bit of, it's a little bit of a mash of things. So basically, here's my own commentary. What I would do to enhance this going forward is I would probably also put an actual lecture video in here as well on the lesson. So I probably would have what you're seeing right here, and before it goes to the e-text, where it says read chapter 3 in your e-text, before then, I would probably put a lecture video with captions on the lesson itself, which this particular one is on socialization. And then of course I have lecture notes for them, so they can, it just kind of helps like digest it down further for them. So I realize everybody learns.
What are these numbers referencing? I guess that's what I'm not understanding. So you have like 4 or 5, are those just sections, or are those referencing notes about the PowerPoint presentation, or what are these notes on?
These are notes on the subject of socialization, as you know, as we're covering it in the course. And maybe I ought to do these as just bullet points instead of numbered. You know, I was having a hard time with bullet points in Canvas, and so it tended to like this format a little bit better. But I can drill it down to just bullet points, so it doesn't look like it's referencing
these are
anything.
on the same content of the slides, but they're not linked. It's not a one-to-one link to those slides. Got it.
The exact same content of the slides, because the slides themselves are going to be more succinct than what you're seeing there. So then they would go in, they'd open up the PowerPoint presentation. And here I have it as a file. I could always do it as a link to a Google Doc, which might be better.
Well, it is embedded there if you just click to the right.
So I'd flesh these out a little bit more, and I probably will do this as an embedded Google Doc instead of as an actual file. I don't know. Do you think it's better for students to actually download it, or?
Yeah, I'm not sure either way. I think that it just depends on your content. If the video that you're making is gonna be a video kind of presentation of these slides, then you wouldn't need the slides necessarily at all, or you could present them in whatever
That's a good idea.
Makes sense.
I love that.
For sure. So, I mean, I think it just depends on how it is that you want to do it. And my own personal preference is the more that can be within Canvas, the easier it is to know what your progression path is, right? Like, and that's, right. For me, I feel like I get to the course, I see that there's all these pages, and then I can't stand when I get to one page that says, here, go to Revel, and it's one page of content in the Canvas course, but then it's another 4 hours of work, right? And so it's hard to judge. It's hard to judge for me how to spend my time when you don't know. And so the more that's in there is my personal preference. And I guess that leads me to my last question, which is, I haven't, it's been a while since I've seen the Building Communities course, but I'm wondering, if the I saw the Google document that you had made and the doing the slides and having people share the photos, and I'm wondering, what is the reason for doing that as a Google document instead of doing that in a Canvas discussion board or in some other tool within Canvas?
Yeah, so what I would like to do is, because I believe in Canvas we have like a wiki tool, is that right?
Yes.
I think that would be better than the Google Docs version. I just learned it as a Google Docs thing.
Right,
but
you're just doing what we told you to do.
Do it as a Canvas tool, like a wiki. And so I just need to learn more about how to do that. So I think a lot of these activities, I love the suggestion you've made of me doing the video lecture based on the PowerPoint slides. And what I could do is just say, here are the PowerPoints if you want to download them for any reason, but everything's covered in the video.
Right.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Sure, that makes so much more sense. So yeah, whenever I could do it as a Canvas tool, I definitely will, because Canvas is so easy to use. And like I said, at Pearson, we're getting better and better at embedding things directly into Canvas. So for now, we have the single sign-on and the gradebook integration. But like Mike has requested in the past, let's get it so it's deep linking as well, so it feels like it's in Canvas.
Right. Well, I just think you did a really great job, and I love how organized your portfolio is, and I really like your use of images in the portfolio. I don't think enough people take advantage of making it also look beautiful, but then the reasons that you include the images, it's just a wonderful addition. So thanks.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I find images, you'll see that same trend throughout my course, like anytime we go into the week. Sorry, your little heads get in my way.
Just knock us off to the side.
Notice that every time I go, I really searched very carefully for the images I used in my course as well, because I was thinking, well, what would convey social class in the United States? And I found a Titanic boarding pass image. And I thought, wow, that's kind of a nice commentary on what social class does to us. So I find images very powerful.
I like images too. So my usual end question is about how @ONE can continue to support you and what you would like to see in our workshops and webinars. And Alex, who's in charge of our webinars, is on our call today, so she's probably eager to hear what kind of webinars you'd like going forward as well. But one of the things that I love about images in my course is I learned how to use Canva, so I can make all different kinds of images myself, graphics that kind of anchor the students through my course. So I really like those too. So that leads to my question, which is, how can we support you going forward? What would you like to see from @ONE?
Well, I think that exactly that. I think some of the things I'm trying to do in an online environment are kind of highly unusual, even in an on-campus environment, because I've had so many teachers throughout the year say, how do you do group work? Or how do you do community service learning? And how is that even possible? And yet I just did it. So I think I would love to have a repository of various assignment types that we could borrow from and adapt to our courses. So that would be awesome. And it would be great if they're already in the Canvas format, and if there's some way to just borrow them and say, okay, so I'm going to take, because I could, in other words, I'm going to use my sociology course, but I might get hired to do music appreciation or humanities. So I need to easily be able to, I still like doing these assignment types, but I need to easily rework them to be more appropriate to that course. So that would be great, a repository. And also coaching for people like me, where I want to use VoiceThread, but I'm a little scared of it, but I still want to be brave and bite the bullet and do it anyway. I would like to do, you know, what Donna was suggesting with the videos of the PowerPoints and knowing the best way of putting that kind of a video together and where the best way to embed it so it feels as seamless as possible to the student. And any suggestions you have for the publisher end, we're all over it. And I'm definitely, the good news is I did a unique role for Pearson for the last year where I was their implementation manager, where I basically was the person who said, here's what instructors really need help with and how we need to work better with the learning management system to make it feel seamless. So I would like every aspect of this to feel like they're completely always in Canvas, and it's just moving from one page to the next, and the student has a well-guided experience. And so you'll notice just even the one thing I did want to point out to you, and I know our time is up, but the welcome, like I was saying with the welcome page, are you in the right course? And that goes, so it's dealing with one issue. The first issue we need to find out is, are you in the right place? And then the next issue we need to, are you in the right environment? And then going from there, are you okay with the course policies? It's a little bit like taking them step by step. It's like giving them a walking tour. Okay, if I'm with this part of the course, I'm okay with it so far. Now let me look at the next part of the course, see if I'm okay with that, and so on. Am I okay with how I'm going to get graded in this course? So I like a lot of that, where it's basically holding the student's hand and doing it like checkpoints. Are you sure that this is right for you? Are you sure that this is right? And if so, let's keep continuing. And then after this, they get their syllabus quiz. That was fun, building a quiz in Canvas. So yeah, so that's the kind of experience I would like to give the student, is step by step. Is everything looking for you?
Well, I think that Canvas is the perfect environment for that. And so you found the right spot as far as that's concerned. That we call it nexting through the course, allows you to build in that content with those self-checks. And another great piece of news for you is that through the Canvas Commons, we are able to share entire modules, entire courses, assignments, and other peripheral material. And so
Wonderful.
I think we're going to be building a larger and larger repository. And I personally love group work, so you and I should make sure that we're friends inside that Canvas Commons so we can share stuff.
I would love that, because I think the more social learning, I really love the video we were watching on that TED Talk where he was getting the students to teach each other. Because I truly believe that in an ideal learning environment, whether it's on campus or online, you're co-teaching with your students.
Right.
You're not the sage on the stage, you're the guide on the side, right?
That's right. You get them in that beautiful sweet spot where they have that zone of proximal development and let them go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us today and walking us through your ePortfolio. We really appreciate it. You've done some really great work here. The process goes like this. Mike and Donna and the other people who have been in your call will send a report to me, and then I compile all of the information in, and it goes to the @ONE review board, who looks at your the archive of your presentation. So don't forget to archive that. And we're really trying to get feedback back to people before we go on holiday break. Fall is always really difficult for us because of that. So we're really trying to get that feedback back to you. If we cannot get that to you, we'll let you know right before break that you can expect it in the first week of January. So what I'd like to do is ask you to stop the recording. It's easiest if you stop screen sharing first.
Okay, and then got to move your heads again. Your heads keep getting in my way. So
that's okay. So